Yoon groaned as the piercing sound of her alarm shattered the peaceful silence of morning. She reached over her bedside table and fumbled for the source of disturbance, finally silencing it. Rubbing the sleep from her eyes, she lay still for a moment, staring up at the ceiling. Turning her head, she glanced over at the empty space beside her where her husband should have been. For the past 2 weeks, it had become his routine, waking up early and sometimes not sleeping the whole night, consumed by an important project at work. She had told him 1,000 times that he should not overwork himself, but he was stubborn. She had learned about him. Sighing heavily, she swung her leg over the edge of the bed and pushed herself upright. Walking like a zombie, she made her way towards the bathroom. It was the most hated routine of hers to get up early and go to work. After getting fresh, she made her way to the kitchen. She glanced at the clock above the microwave, noting the time with a sigh. It was earlier than she would prefer to wake, but duty called. She shrugged as she reached for the coffee maker, already knowing the routine by heart. Jungkook can't seem to start his day without coffee, and she had long accepted it, the role of his personal barista. As the coffee brewed, filling the kitchen with rich aroma, she moved the cup forward, fetched a mug. She poured the steaming liquid into it, adding just the right amount of cream and sugar according to his preference. After making the coffee, she turned her attention to her needs. She rummaged through the pantry, finally retrieving a loaf of bread and a jar of strawberry jam, toast and jam, a simple breakfast. It was all she had the energy to muster up at this hour. With a heavy sigh, she picked up the freshly brewed coffee mug, its warmth seeping through her finger. Carrying the steaming cup, she made her way towards the lounge where Jungkook was likely buried in his work. He was already there as usual, engrossed in his paperwork. She watched him for a moment, the lines of concentration etched on his face, before clearing her throat to announce her presence. "Good morning," she said softly, setting the cup of. He looked up briefly, acknowledging her presence. "Morning." She pulled out a chair, taking a seat across him. She sipped on her own coffee. "Did you sleep at all last night?" she asked. Jungkook didn't look up from his work as he replied, "Not much. There's a lot to get through." "Well, try to take it easy, okay?" she said, trying to hide the disappointment in her voice. "You need to take care of yourself too." His only response was a non-committal grunt, and she sighed. At least she tried. She can't force him now, can she? "At least come and have your breakfast, then leave it for a moment." He sighed, looking up at her. "You know our meeting is today, and I can't really afford to waste my time. I will eat when I have time. Right now, I need to focus." I know, but you need energy too. You can't skip your breakfast, and beside, what if you fail? Yun, please." She fell silent, sensing his irritation. She knew pushing further would only lead to more tension. "Fine, if you want to have it." Everything is placed on the kitchen counter. He hummed only. She bit her lips in irritation. So he doesn't even ask if she had a breakfast or not. Well, he looked quite busy to even notice that. She doesn't usually get annoyed. She knows it's not his fault. That deal really important for him. But she was just feeling annoyed. Maybe it was just her period's mood swing that was taking a toll on her, that she's getting annoyed by small things. She pushed her chair and got ready earlier than usual. She lost her appetite too. Making her way towards the main door, she was stopped by his voice. "Where are you going?" Oh, so he finally acknowledged her presence. "Where do we go this time?" "But we both know we go together." "Yeah, but I'm going with my colleague. She come to pick me up today, and we have some work together." That was a blatant lie. She's not going with any colleague. Hell, she doesn't even know how she's going to her office. But she knew one thing, she didn't want to go with him, and for a second she almost thought that he would say something else, but she could have seen it coming when he just nodded his head. Letting out a hug, she stormed out of the house. Jungkook fingers tapping restlessly on the file in front of him. He was nervous, really nervous. He'd been going over the details again and again, trying to make sure everything was perfect for the upcoming board meeting. That was a big deal, possibly the biggest of his career so far. On the outside, he tried to keep calm and collected, but inside his mind was racing with anxiety and excitement. He could not afford to mess this up. Too much was at stake. Glancing at the clock, he saw that the time was slipping away faster than he too realized. His gaze drifted across the room to where Yun sat at her desk, lost in her thoughts, looking out of the glass window. "Yun," he called out, but she didn't respond, lost in her thoughts as she stared out in the distance. His brows furrowed as he called her out again. "Yun." This time she immediately turned to look towards his direction. "Yes, Jungkook?" Where are you lost in thoughts? You know we have a meeting in half an hour, he said, and her shoulders slumped as she nodded. I know. All right, then come here, he said, gesturing toward his desk. She nodded before rising from his seat and making her way towards him. Standing in front of his desk with a smile seeing her brows, Jungkook glanced at the clock once more before turning his attention back to her. Did Mrs. Choi arrive yet? She shook her head. Not yet, she said. She will be here in 10 minutes. He nodded his head, rubbing his forehead in concentration. He sighed. When she arrived, tell her to come into my office and take this file to Mr. Hunt. Please make sure he takes every copy of it carefully. I don't need any mistake in the last moments. Okay, don't worry, she said softly, knowing that how this meeting is important for him. He was nervous. She can easily tell by the way he ran his hand through his hair every minute. She has been working for him from past 1 year, though their relationship is nothing more than professional before, and unfortunately nothing changed after marriage too. Do you need anything more? No, you can leave. But before she took a step, her eyes widened when she realized something. Shoot, I forget, Jungkook. Your father is here. Maybe he wanted to meet you. His jaw tightened, his irritation mounting with each passing second. Tell him that I'm busy. His words cut off abruptly as the door to his office swung open, revealing his father standing in the doorway, a stern expression on his face. Never mind, he muttered under his breath, forcing a smile on his face as he looked at his father. Dad, what are you doing here? You don't look much happy after seeing me. Mr. June said as he stepped further inside the room, his gaze swinging towards June. June couldn't help but shake the feeling of unease that settled in the pit of his stomach at his father's presence. His father rarely visited him in office, and when he did, it was not usually for a good reason, and Jungkook was surely not ready for another confrontation. He had a big meeting to attend, and he needed his mind to remain calm and cool, so he needed to mess anything up. It's not like that, Dad. Please have a seat. Yoon stared at the two of them for a while and retreated herself out of the office. Though she wanted to be there stand beside Jungkook, she had other work to do. She was curious as to why his father visited him today. Because the last time Mr. June had come to his office, Jungkook had asked her to marry him, turning her world upside down in the most unexpected way. Yoon was deeply engrossed in her work, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she tapped away at her computer. There came a soft knock on the office door, pulling her from her work. She looked up, her heart escaping a beat as she caught sight of Jungkook standing there in the doorway, his expression unreadable as usual. Mr. June, she immediately stood up from her seat at his unexpected visit. Is everything alright? He remained silent, his gaze fixed on her that made her pulse quicken. In the 7 months he had been working as his secretary, she had grown accustomed to his cold and professional demeanor, but something about this silence now was making her uneasy. She shifted nervously under his gaze. Had she made a mistake? Was there something he needed from her? And then just when she thought he could not bear any tension any longer, he spoke. He uttered those words that she never in her wildest dreams expected to hear. Will you marry me? Her mind went black as she processed his words, her mouth falling open in shock. Did she hear him right, or her mind was playing tricks? Pardon? She said, wanting him to repeat himself, because if she heard that wrong, she doesn't want to make fool out of herself. But Jungkook didn't falter. Instead, he repeated his question more clearly, more boldly. Her heart hammered in her chest. For a moment, she thought he might be joking a prank at her expense. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw no hint of humor, only vulnerability she had never seen before. And in that moment, she knew that this was not a joke. Why? The only question she asked him that time, and she saw him sighing at her words. I'll be straightforward and honest. My father is forcing me to marry someone. As he spoke, he couldn't help but felt a surge of anger and frustration at the thought of his father's manipulation. He hated how his father never saw him as anything more than a pawn to be used for his own gain. How he constantly belittled and degraded him at every turn. There is family rules that dictates that the Junes must marry at a certain age. It's a damn rule. He spat out his words with a venom that surprised even himself. The resentment he felt towards his father bubbling to the surface in a torrent of raw emotions. He hated how his father had always treated him like he was less than nothing, like he was incapable of making him proud. He doesn't want to be the one who obeyed them. He knew his father would never be proud of him, so he'll live his life the way he wants, or so he thought. I don't have much choice, but I know who to choose as my spouse. I don't want to marry according to their choices. Taking a deep breath, he started himself. I know this is sudden, and I will understand if you decline this offer, but still take as much time as you want. I will wait for your response. And just like that, he walked out of there while her mind was racing marriage. It was hard that had never crossed her mind in relationship to him. Despite the undeniable attraction and admiration she felt towards him, he was, after all, the epitome of sophistication and success, the Jungkook every girl dreamed of, but to whom none dared to aspire. But now he was standing before her with a vulnerability that took her breath away, asking to marry him. And she knows this marriage is not out of love, just a marriage of convenience. That time she said yes to the marriage, thinking about it a lot because 5 months ago she made a rough sketch in her mind that maybe after marriage they will change in their relationship. Just because she admires him, she said yes to it. Yes, things have changed, not much but a little. But Jungkook is a person who is close up in himself, and it's so difficult to make him come out of his shell. Sometimes you think their relationship will get a certain point where they both are comfortable enough to openly and truly connect. She waited for Jungkook to come out of his office. Mr. Dune just left the office and he was still inside. She was thinking to go inside, but as she thought of the door of his office opened. As he came out, he started to make his way towards the board meeting. The tension radiation from his pallor, his posture stiff and his expression rigid, betraying the turmoil within him. She knew without a doubt that whatever happened behind the closed door was not good. She walked behind him. She knew how he felt after meeting his father. She knew him more than an air, and now can understand him only in few minutes. As he reached for the door handle, her hand shot out, instinctively grabbing his hand in a firm grip. Startled, he turned to look at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. Wait, you can't go like this, she said, and he furrowed his brows, looking at himself if he missed anything. What? Well, instead of saying anything further, she set his tie, look it more neater. Relax your shoulder, she whispered, her touch feather light as she placed both her hands on his shoulder, massaging away the tension. He watched in silence, his expression unreadable as he allowed both his frayed nerves. Surprisingly, his troubled nerves began to soothe at her touch. Go now, and don't worry, you have got this. She smiled, squeezing his hand, feeling his inside little calm from his previous rage of emotions. Unknowingly, he didn't realize he was holding her finger for his dear life. He was surprised himself that a mere touch of hers could ease his tension. At least he was glad she was with him right now. He nodded his head, a smile forming on his lips as he turned to enter the meeting room. Why are you ignoring me? She said finally, his eyes meeting her for a moment before he looked down. What are you talking about? What I'm talking about, so let me put it in more clear words for you. It's been weeks since we had last conversation. That was not about worry. Days since you even look at me properly. Jungkook had paused in the moment, but he didn't turn to face her. I'm not ignoring you. Yes, you are avoiding me, shutting me off like I don't even exist. He sighed, finally turning to look at her. I'm busy. I have a lot on my plate right now. It's not personal. Nothing personal? Do you even know how your behavior is hurting me? You're completely acting like I don't exist in this house, Jungkook. And you're saying it's nothing personal? Your work is so much for you that you don't even have an ounce of time for your own wife. Stop exaggerating it. It's not that. Is it because of your father? Is that why you're pushing me away? Because of him? What about my father? He demanded, his voice icy. Scared her shoulder, refusing to back down. Whenever you talk to him, you change. You become cold, distant, like you're a completely different person. Stayed quite not now avoiding a kiss. She walked where he was sitting, taking his laptop away from him. I'm your wife, Jungkook. Why can't you just share your problems with me? Didn't I tell you we should not hide things from each other? Then can't you just trust me and open up about the things that's bothering you? There's nothing bothering me. And she noticed how he's avoiding her gaze, and she knew there's something which is not telling her. While you were trying to avoid the topic, I thought our relationship would get better. But past weeks you completely avoided me like I don't exist. You don't spend time with me nor you come home early. What should I think about all this? It's getting tiring to pretend that everything is okay when it's not. He sighed, looking exhausted. When you're being pushy, there's nothing wrong. I'm just busy with work, that's all. I'm really right. You're tired, you're busy, and I'm being pushy. Is that what you all can say? Is that your excuse to treat me like an invisible creature? All I want to know is what's going on with my husband, that he's actually shutting me off from his own life. But no, you always ignore me. I'm your wife, damn it. I deserve to know what's going on with you. I deserve to be a part of life, not just some afterthought you can ignore whenever it's convenient for you. You make me feel like I'm your secretary and not your wife. And I don't know if I'm patient enough to keep living like this with you, because you always prioritize your work or me. Yun, I know our marriage was one of your hasty decisions, and maybe I was just stupid enough to say yes to your offer thinking that things might change between us, but I was wrong. If you think I'm a bother being pushy, then alright, from now on you don't have to worry about that. I'll actually become invisible in your eyes. She said, turning on her heels, not wanting him to see the tears that betraying her eyes now. Jungkook watched helplessly as she walked away. He knew she was right. He had been neglecting her, shutting her out, and it pained him to see her hurt in her eyes. He knew he had pushed her too far, that he had failed to be the husband she deserved. Jung, biting his lips nervously, he mustered the courage up to speak. I'm sorry. He knew these few words are equal to nothing, and it wouldn't change the thing the way he heard it. Sorry for shutting you out, for making you feel like you don't matter. Sorry for not opening up to you when you tried to reach out for me. He turned onto his side, facing her back. Though she still had to move his gaze softened as he curved over her shoulder with his eyes. I know I've been distant lately, and I know it hurt you. He continued, but please believe me when I say that it's not because I don't care. It's because I don't know how to let you in. I have spending so long keeping my emotions locked away, hiding behind those walls I created for myself. And now you're trying to break through those walls. I'm just confused. But I realized not that pushing you away was the biggest mistake I have ever made. He sighed when she still didn't move. Now I'm starting to think that she's actually sleeping. But if she is actually sleeping, it is making a fool out of itself, laying there speaking to us in the room. My decision of marrying you was not a hasty one. I know it might not seem that way, especially considering how distant I have been, but it was not. In fact, it was one of the most important decisions I have ever made in my life. He shifted slightly, adjusting his position on the bed, still unsure if she was awake or not, but he needed to get off this chest whether she heard him or not. I want to be rebel that time, going against my parents' order just to show they don't have control over my life anymore. Before we get married, I will admit I was not sure how things would turn out. But being with you surely changed many things. You're different. You're caring and patient. You have always been there for me, even when I don't deserve it. I might not have realized it at first, but after we get married, I started to see things differently. I started to see you differently, and and I started to fall in love with you. Slowly but surely, I'm still not sure how to express it, and I don't know from where this courage is coming from. If you are sleepy, I might be looking like an idiot. He fell silent, his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for any sign, any response. He hoped she was listening. You were asking for the reason, and it's about my father. You were right. He made me a promise, a condition, if you will. He said if I were to divorce you, he would accept me back into my family. He said it finally, closing his eyes tight, but glanced back, his heart skipping a beat with when she turned around to face him. Her eyes were swollen. She was awake all this time. He was glad, but nervous as well. And you are considering it?